Opinions, allies on the journey. Welcome to Lifelong, where practical health meets real life and we work through our issues together. I'm Ethan Suplee, and I'm happy you're joining us this Monday as we settle into the week. It is new. 2026 is upon us. Today, we're going to be talking with Dylan Gunn Dylan Guynn. Sorry, Dylan,
No worries at all.
about how building strength is the secret weapon for sustainable weight loss. But to start, let's turn to the news and talk about what just happened to common sense in the realm of public health. Last week, the US government changed its guidance on alcohol consumption. For the better part of 35 plus years, federal dietary guidance has told us one thing: women should stick to one drink a day, men to two. I did feel like I did question whether this was going to be perceived as misogynistic. I think that's just the facts and the data about men being generally larger, so they get a little bit more. Those limits were rooted not in ideology, but in data about long-term health risks. Those numerical benchmarks are gone. In their place, a sentence that basically says, drink less if you can. I've talked a lot about this, but I'm a sober person, and I want to be honest and upfront about that and say that as a sober person who's been sober for a long time, I have absolutely no need for anyone else to be sober. This is not a moral issue for me. But it's also not just bureaucratic hair splitting. It's policy that shapes how doctors counsel patients, how schools design health curricula, and how the public perceives risk. And if it comes at a moment when alcohol consumption, especially amongst younger people, is declining, precisely because more folks are waking up to the harms alcohol actually causes. And I don't want to mince words. Alcohol is a carcinogen. The World Health Organization classifies it as a group 1 carcinogen linked to cancers of the mouth, throat, esophagus, liver, breast, colon, and more. There is really no safe level when we're talking cancer risk. Even light drinking raises those odds. I'm not against alcohol. In fact, it's quite possible as I look over that my lovely wife Brandy is imbibing right now as we speak. And I'm certainly not judging her. She's an adult, and I want her to basically, and everyone, to make decisions that are correct for them. But I want them to be informed decisions. If you read the updated guidelines, you'd barely know that there was any downside to alcohol. The strong, clear warnings about cancer, chronic disease, and mortality, they're gone. They're omitted. Vague language about overall better health and social lubrication fills that space instead. And it's the difference between saying, like, don't drive this car at 100 miles per hour or maybe slow down a little bit. It's really vague. And who benefits from this muddying of waters? The only people possible is the same corporate interests that make billions selling alcohol products. When you replace clear limits with fuzzy language, you create doubt, and doubt protects profits. Public health loses, lobbyists win. Meanwhile, science keeps telling us what we already felt in our bones and in our communities. Fewer people are drinking. Fewer young people are adopting drinking as a default social behavior, and that trend has real health upside. The government should celebrate that and amplify it, not undercut it with guidance so soft it might as well be a marketing slogan. So tonight, let's be clear. This isn't just a dietary guideline change. It's a betrayal of the public's right to clear, evidence-based information about what keeps us healthy. And it deserves to be called out. So get out into the world, talk to people, but don't get hoodwinked by the government. Community is vitally important. Be social. Get off your phones. Alcohol isn't a necessary component to any of this. And with that said, welcome, Dylan. What are your thoughts on this change to the dietary guidelines?
Hey, thanks for having me, first and foremost. Yeah, I was actually watching someone explain the guidelines this morning. It's interesting. We've seen, as you had mentioned, kind of the social trend of now less people drinking as a means of social, just in general, it's declined quite a bit. And I think part of that, I actually don't, I've never looked into the source as to why. I imagine part of it is the information and knowing that it does have harm. Um, and it also could be a shift in generation. Marijuana, I think maybe could be offsetting some of that too. But I hear you 100% on the fact that like it does have downsides, and as far as being an informed consumer, it is really important that within the guidelines these things are mentioned and they're highlighted. I think not to name drop, but I think Dr. Mike, who I work with, had mentioned something about maybe a couple of drinks might not be particularly harmful, and that's not a stance. I'm not sure if he's updated his stance and looked at the literature, so I don't want to speak for him there. But he did take a lot of flack for that, saying that a couple of drinks, maybe in moderation, might not be as harmful. And I haven't looked through the literature myself, so I can't speak on it too confidently.
Did he take
Um,
flack, meaning people thought that people should have no drinks or people should have lots of drinks?
Yeah, it was any dose. Any dose is harmful,
Oh,
and we should abstain entirely from alcohol. And again, this could be, this was a while ago, so I could be, quoting incorrectly here. Um, and so I do think that there may be some benefits to relaxation. Now, is the benefit of relaxation the social aspect? Is that outweighing some of the negative risks? I'm not sure, and I think that as a consumer, if you're able to be informed of those risks and make the decision as an adult, I think that's probably the best way to go about it. But the problem is if it's not stated and it's not made very clear that this thing is harmful, then you maybe aren't as informed of a consumer when you go to, partake in drinking, for example.
yeah, when I got all up in arms about this, my wife did make a point and she said something to the effect of like, would you rather our college age kids sit in their rooms on their phones or be out at a party having a drink? And like part of me as a dad to girls, I'm like, keep them at home. That's fine. They're totally fine. But I get more broadly the social aspect of like, you need community and that's important. And I understand social lubrication and the necessity for that. But I don't think like I don't, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, and I don't know. I haven't actually read the literature that said alcohol should be limited to 2 drinks per day per male and one per female. But if that was backed up by real science, I don't think it should be stripped away in the way it has. Like it just smells stinky to me, the way it was done.
Yeah, that's something I was thinking about. To back on your other point, this morning when I was listening to it, it was that some people, it does help with the socialization. It does help them to open up. It does have community around it, just as food does. And I think you've discussed that at length, through your social media and stuff. And it's tough. It's a tough thing where it's like, well, do we need alcohol to have a good time or to socialize? No. And if you are using it as that, then it's probably something to look at. Maybe it's a crutch, and maybe it's something that you should, reevaluate. But, on occasion, if it's helping you to unwind, then maybe there are certain scenarios for the individual for them to make that trade-off and make that decision.
Yeah. There's the most generous part of me sees like the current administration looking at, oh my God, kids are not talking to each other in person enough. We got to do something about this. What do
Give them
we
alcohol.
do? Get them to drink a little bit more, But I just don't totally buy that that's what happened. Um,
Yeah.
and I wonder if kids are already not drinking as much because I've read articles that talked about that. Like why? I doubt that they're doing it out of health-minded reasons. I just don't buy
Hmm.
that totally either. So it just becomes a little bit confusing. Like, and what unfortunately, my tinfoil hat jumps to alcohol sales are down. Some lobbyist comes in and says we need these restrictions loosened a little bit. How do we do that in the only justifiable way we can? And they just muddy the language. And to me, I don't know, it bums me out a little bit.
Sure. No, I could totally see that perspective, and it is confusing with the administration. I don't know how involved um that, like I don't mean to drop like RFK or any of those other people, but it seems like I don't know, kind of counter to their message almost, it feels
Yeah,
like. So that's what kind of struck me as weird, right?
right. Let's make America healthy again. And
Yeah.
also you can drink more. Or
Right,
we're
right.
not going to tell you not to drink more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, that's not really what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about muscle and fat loss and the benefits of muscle in in losing fat, but also maintaining fat loss. I found it super, super useful. But you, as somebody who does this for a living, can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite things to talk about.
As somebody in bodybuilding, how, the first thing that when I looked at bodybuilding as like a pattern of existence, I was like, oh, these guys are almost always on a diet, but where my life, the peaks and valleys were so extreme, they've elongated them a little bit. So it's like a little bit of fat gain, a little bit of fat loss, and sparing muscle tissue all the while.
Hmm.
Does that
Uh,
read accurate to you?
I'm sorry, could you reframe that?
Like when I prior to like looking at bodybuilding as a lifestyle,
Mhm.
my own personal fat gain and loss was radical. It was really severe dieting, which resulted in muscle wasting,
Mhm.
but a lot of weight loss and then rapid regaining. But when I looked at bodybuilders, I saw these seasons of weight gain and weight loss that was just mellowed out a little bit. So it wouldn't be as dramatic as mine, but also it was muscle sparing.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends. It depends on who you're looking at. I think that if you look at also kind of modern bodybuilding practices, those large swings tend to be not as, and I think we talked about this last time we did a podcast. Those large swings tend to be not something as many people are doing, because we're aware of like the health trade-offs that kind of occur with those large swings. It's much more difficult to be in shape. You have the potential downside of loose skin or other things being altered that dieting can't get rid of as well when pushing to extremes. But there are those like old photos I had mentioned before of like Lee Priest who did like this mega bulk, right? Where he balloons up to like 20-30%. I'm sorry, is that my auto frame on Zoom? He balloons up to like 20-30%, and he has to diet back down for the Mr. Olympia, and he's doing it in X amount of weeks. Actually, I used to live in Santa Monica, and I remember this is what 10 years ago now. Sean Roden, who went on to win the Mr. Olympia, I saw him like maybe 3 months before this show, right? And this is the one of the best bodybuilders in the world, ended up being the best bodybuilder in the world, and also getting ready for a show really close. That would be pretty close in proximity. And I mean, he looked big, but like he didn't look like he was about to win the best bodybuilder in the world award. And I was like, how is this guy going to pull it off? And I think I maybe had moved back at the time, didn't see him, but that was the year he won. And I was just like, how? So this maybe is closer to 2018, but I was like, how is that possible? Obviously, there's pharmacological intervention involved there too, and just like some of the most crazy genetics. But I will say that that was also something that people really kind of like squinted at, and is still kind of like, most cases were staying within, not surpassing 20%, so not surpassing the, you know, loss of visible abs or anything like that. Um, yeah, sorry, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. But as a lifestyle, it seems like it's super focused on the specificity of I'm going to build muscle and I'm going to lose fat, not weight as an overall catch-all. It's not,
Yeah.
the scale plays an important role, but you're hyper focused on fat.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I would say like even as a coach, I don't always look just at the scale, and often there's a lot of times where I'm not even looking at the scale to assess a client's progress, because there are a lot of factors that influence why someone's weight might be changing. And really, what we're after is body composition, right? How much muscle tissue do they have, and how much muscle tissue are they able to keep, as well as while losing body fat oftentimes, right? And so that's a fine line that you have to walk. But I actually was just doing a podcast for RP this morning where they were interviewing Dr. Eric Trexler. And there, while there is some idea that you're going to lose some tissue, there's also people who are well trained, who are training with weights consistently, have a high protein intake. If done correctly, which I can get into if you'd like, what that might look like. Most individuals are able to keep most of their muscle
Right.
in
But
in good
But like,
circumstances.
but and it becomes vitally important with bodybuilders. I think I would love you to get into that because especially now where I think and I have no data to back this up, but I think like a lot of people are utilizing GLP-1 agonists to lose weight. Like
Mhm.
that seems like the broad way people are doing it now. Um, it's just as important now to talk about this because that is essentially putting you into a very low caloric intake state,
Yeah.
which can be and I'm not demonizing GLP-1s. I talked about being on keto, but like a low cal version of keto and going and doing multiple DEXA scans and seeing that I was wasting tissue. So I'm not, but any diet that if you don't watch out for it, you will lose muscle.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the GLP-1 stuff I can get into a little bit too, because that poses other problems, such as yeah, like eating enough and not creating too big of a deficit. And ultimately, we're still looking at the human body physiology, right? So there's going to be some principles that apply that the medication it seems to be attenuating to some, but not all of these things. So it is still yeah very pertinent, especially for someone who maybe is still titrating or correcting their dose to make sure they're eating enough protein, make sure they're not going into these like really harsh deficits. And something I've experienced because I have dieted with them for bodybuilding is the symptoms of the diet fatigue underneath do not get attenuated. Your nervous system still accumulates fatigue. I like to always analogize it like a bucket. So like you have this bucket of just like life stress, training stress, and you're just filling it up constantly, right? And that bucket needs to be dumped out at some point, or you kind of crash and burn, so to speak. This is where people tend to go off their diets and stuff like that too. And that bucket still gets filled up. It might not be getting filled up with as much diet fatigue, right? You're not like psychologically as like hungry all the time and all these other things, but it's still getting filled up. So that does still need to be attenuated too as well.
How would you do that on a GLP-1? Do you have to go off of it?
No, no, it would be the same ways in which, and you've gone about this approach before when you were, I think even now, but when you were working with Jared, I believe, even because he had it with me, it's just fatigue reduction strategies. So that's not having your foot on the gas pedal all the time, and
Right.
it's very tempting when, especially like I imagine you've been struggling with your weight, you get on this medication, you're prescribed it, your doctor puts you on it, and then you are losing weight, and you're like, wow, I feel confident, I felt good. Let's just this more of this is better, right? This the more is better kind of idea, and you're in it, and it's like I don't want to take a step back. I don't want to take a diet break, right? Maybe reduce the medication for a period of time, go to a maintenance level of intake, don't train as hard for a little bit. And this can be assessed via how much weight you've lost and, training performance, like motivation to train, but also like, are you able to bench press the same amount you did last month? Those things start to kind of, those boxes start to kind of check of like, ooh, like the performance is down. I'm not as motivated. I've even had hunger drive through the medication. So like, you basically start getting way more hungry and you're like, I'm on this medication. Why is it not doing its job? And so those things just need to be attenuated to by pulling back a little bit. And that's more of like, that's a tough conversation. That's a tough conversation for individuals who are not on GLP-1s, like with clients, even. I generally have to have a conversation of like, hey, things are starting to trend in not the right direction. We can only push for so hard for so long. We need to pull back a little bit. Um,
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if other things like sleep are affected on those medications because that's one of the things when I'm deep into a diet, my sleep starts I start to become more irritable and I can't even always associate it with the diet. It just, I suddenly am not sleeping well.
being objective about am I fatigued? Do I need to pull back? Is like one of the most difficult things. Especially like I was self-coached for a while, and I mean like there's so much like rationalizing things going on in my head that like I'm trying to
Right.
just continue to push. Especially if you're wired like that, it's just like it's not. It's always great to have someone else in your corner, even if it's your wife saying like you're not you're moving or and turning over in bed a bunch or whatever it might be. Um, but yeah, so I actually consider GLP as a performance enhancer for that specific reason because bodybuilders oftentimes will be dieting. Anybody will be dieting for, just for whatever reason, and you get to this point where your sleep starts to get disrupted. This is usually on the the leaner end, but it still happens just based on duration and how much you've lost.
Yeah.
So if you've lost over 10% of your body weight, you've been dieting for 8 to 12 weeks, you might just start to experience sleep disruption. For me, it presents as like I usually don't have a hard time going to sleep, but it's like staying asleep, waking up in the middle of the night. Oftentimes, without a GLP, you'll wake up hungry, right? But then with the GLP, you just wake up and you're like looking around, like what's going on. But that intervention point, like the point at which you realize that that's happening and it starts to affect you as much, like you have much more of a tolerance for it on GLPs. So like it doesn't happen as soon. But that also is something to take into consideration of like if this is occurring and you're on this medication, you probably need some downtime soon because like if it's coming through all of that, then it might be something that needs to be attenuated too.
Yeah. If somebody has massive weight to lose, would you recommend diet breaks early on?
Yeah. Yeah. So the strategy and the strategies that you found to be effective to do your massive weight loss, fat loss would be the same strategies you'd apply to someone who's on these medications.
Yeah.
It's just hard because you don't have hunger as a signal, which is not like I'm sure at some point you were like, this is not a reliable signal for me because you did it without, right? So you're just like, I just kind of not throw that one out. It's not like
Well,
super
I mean,
helpful.
I had a whole gamut of other issues. I discovered like I I couldn't always tell the difference between the types of hunger. Like to
Mm,
me, hedonic hunger and conditioned hunger read the same way as whatever homeostatic hunger is. Do you know what I mean? It all
yeah,
kind of felt the same to me, which is just a desire to eat versus like my body needs energy was the same thing as I'm feeling anxious and so I want to eat food to soothe myself. It took me a long time to try and separate those things and recognize that when I sit down to watch TV, my urge to eat is not the same as, when I wake up and I didn't eat dinner. These are two different feelings, but I read them as the same for a long time.
yeah. Yeah, what was the, if you don't mind me asking, what were the like what helped you to distinguish those things?
Was really every single time I wanted to eat, I would stop
Thank you.
and go through my life and go like, what's happening right now? Am
Mm,
I anxious? Am I sad? Am I happy? Or did I just not eat lunch? Like I had to like stop and slow down. When I go to the movies, I feel hungry, but am I actually hungry or am I just conditioned to be putting my hand to my mouth while I watch a movie? Um, and I had to like talk myself through it for a couple of years.
yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, it's like just mindfulness around your food and your behavior.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
But it wasn't something that I could, because I didn't, to be honest with you, prior to like doing maintenance a few times, I didn't actually know what running at optimal was. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
Running my system on like I've eaten enough food, I don't need any more food was completely unrecognizable to me. Like the the cues for wanting to eat were all still there and to a maddening extent. They just weren't signals being sent physiologically, or maybe it was physiological, but was coming from a different part of my brain or something.
yeah. Yeah, it's an important that you mentioned that though too, because I think that for an individual, if they were using GLP-1 or any of these other medications too, like that mindfulness component is still super, super, super important. Because there are individuals who will eat through the medication and also get sick as a result of that too. But it is also a part of like how much you're taking. And you had even mentioned like maybe like well you're like I'm not sure if it would have attenuated to why I was eating, right? So like that mindfulness is really really key as for anybody.
And my biggest fear with the GLP-1s is for people who maybe don't have, well, first of all, people who are jumping on them, losing some weight, and then going like, I don't need this anymore. I've lost the weight because I did that a number of times through diets and I always gained the weight back. But then you're gaining back fat and you've lost lean tissue. And unless
Mhm.
you're in the gym working out, you're not regaining lean tissue. And so the scariest version to me is some future where there's so much cycling of these because every time somebody hits a goal, they just go off of it for a time. And we have a kind of a static line of overall weight, but an increase in body fat percentage.
Mhm.
Does that dim, dark, dreary picture make sense to you as like a scary outcome?
Yeah, it's also just not, I mean, it's not great for your health. And it's not fun to experience being the person going through it either, right?
Right.
Because you have this thing you achieve, and you've had these large swings that you've talked about. I've had the same. I think my bodybuilding has always kind of kept me on the leaner end, but like there was a fat kid in there that was like dying to get out, basically. And so anytime I'd bulk up, I would just start creeping up to where my abs would just slowly disappear. And so I always said like bodybuilding was like basically my way to kind of tame that inner fat kid in a way, which is not great at all because you're dieting for a show. It's like totally a different beast in and of itself. Um, but yeah, I think that it's my apologies. What was the what were we getting at?
Going seeing the body fat percentage but weight staying static in groups of people that are going on and off of these things over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and I think that those fluctuations like were not great for my health. Like I have lab work from when that was happening, right? It's not good for you psychologically because you have this thing you've achieved and then you're kind of coming back on it. You have, the health of like, once you start pushing into, especially if those habits aren't locked in, that you kind of go back to where you were before, you're not sustaining it. And I think that one of the most important things on this is like, and what I found with clients who maybe were having trouble achieving a certain goal before, and then they do get on these medications because that was the limiting factor. It was the hunger, it was the physiological hunger, um, via probably a genetic or some other underlying things. Is it was enabling for them to be able to engage in some of these behaviors. It was enabling to them that before it was like, the barrier was so high that even just getting a couple of things done and consistently was a willpower challenge every day, and it was also like it was demotivating.
Yeah.
Right. So they get on this, their hunger is at a manageable level, and now they're starting to implement these habits, behaviors. I think that's the best outcome, right? Is either if they have guidance, or they have someone who's telling them, like, hey, exercise with weights, make sure you're eating enough protein. Let's ensure your dosage is correct so you can eat enough protein. That a long term, it seems like that many of these people maybe just have a higher genetic hunger drive, and we don't have medication to attenuate the genetic component. So it seems like it's something you need to take. But could we, via lifestyle factors, because it was enabling for you to be able to do all these things, can we reduce the dosage over time? Can we get you on a maintenance dose? Can we? And I'm sure there are some people who are they're able to successfully come off. Not sure what the percentages or what the data shows on that, but could we get you to a sustainable amount, and keep you there, keep you body fat wise, so you can keep you at a leaner body fat so that you can also maintain your health and whatnot. I think that's probably the best scenario for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad that there are options. I just hope people are being steered towards that,
Yeah,
towards those options.
yeah, yeah. There's always going to be people who are, it's overprescribed. There's a lot of hype behind it, right? It's very, very popular right now. It's like you know, hopefully the providers are helping with that, and I think there are more provider popping up that are like very mindful of like the muscle is important, right? We need you
Right.
to work out with weights, and the access to information, and stuff like this where we can get out and talk about it. I think that's really important.
Yeah. All right. Now, I want to share a clip, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. This is a clip. This is our first things first. It's Mike Boyle on general fitness, and we can discuss it and then open up to the community with questions and everything else. Play the clip, Trace.
Working out with us, my whole goal, I say to somebody, you should get out of bed the next day and be like, I think I worked out.
Yeah.
I felt okay. I always tell everybody, everything's gauged on how you, if you get up in the morning and you're crippled,
Yeah, we did something
I
wrong.
suck. I'm like,
Yeah.
I did a really bad job. You should not be uncomfortable at all. We should be able to, this is whatever, slow and steady wins the race, 1% better, however you want to look at it. And if we can just layer, like I always think, I'm a big attendance guy. If I can get you to show up 2 days a week for a year, you'll be remarkably different. And you might not have ever had, any of the people, balls to the wall or go to failure. Like we would have done none of that. Zero.
What do you think of that, Dylan? Because I know that like there were certainly times when I would go to the gym and go so hard I was like trying to hurt myself, and that was not sustainable. However, I do like to be sore sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe some people have an expected answer from like someone who's like gym rat, right? And it's like you have to be crushed every time you leave. I think I learned from my time as a personal trainer that like what most people don't want that, and there is a sustainability factor to exercise that is really important. Like, not what can I do to cause as much muscle growth in this one session, how can I, or muscle retention or whatever it is, what can I do long term to continue to make progressions and continue to uh, you know get to my goal. And that often isn't the session that completely wrecks you, that you can't get out of bed the next day. And I've been there as well, and I actually found it unsustainable. And it's definitely like there's some survivorship bias there. There are people who still preach this way, and they are definitely part of the people who survived that style of training, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that consideration for, so I think there's a lot of validity to it. I think consideration for future sessions and not trying to just destroy yourself, like intelligent effort is really important when it comes to
Yeah,
progress.
I like the Goggins tell your inner bitch to shut up mantra when I'm laying in bed and I just don't want to go to the gym. Like I can channel that and get there. And then occasionally if I'm supposed to do 4 sets of bench press and after three I'm like I don't really need that fourth set. Then I can go like no, you have a certain amount of there's a volume here that you're going after. Shut up. But when it's like you got to kill yourself every day in the gym. That just for me, and I lived that way for a little while. It was just something I couldn't do because I wound up injuring myself when I worked out that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and the results, like, actually, I think this is some of the stuff that had got me into Dr. Mike and RP, that I now work for, was the kind of their comments around this, because around that time I was training like to failure, and that's kind of bro lore, what kind of occurs in bodybuilding. There's definitely that hardcore mentality that still sticks around. Was just that it isn't like, what was I going after here? Uh well, so that stuff has its place. Like the failure stuff, it has its place. But it. Oh yeah. So where I was going was the you do grow more muscle when you go all out to failure. When you push yourself, you grow. It's a significant number. I'll stop doing that because it keeps reframing me. It's more than if you keep some reps in the reserve, you don't go all the way to failure. But it is also that what I was talking about earlier, that fatigue cost, that bucket fills up way faster when you're going to failure, when you're going all out every session. And you may be able to feel like that for a couple sessions per week, but do that week over week over week. That bucket fills up real fast, and desire to train might start to slide, because you're going in thinking like, I have to crush myself, and you're having to like psych yourself up with some Goggins, with some motivational stuff. And most people, there's only so long they can do that for before they're like, I'm out. Like, this is not fun for me, right?
Or they get broken, or they
Or they get
or they
injured.
get
Yeah,
injured to the point that they can't do it, and
yeah,
and even then you hear he has a story about running a marathon with a broken leg, and you're like, no, you fight through being broken. And it's like not I don't know a lot of people that can do that. Um, and so I just think it's not, it's again, everything requires some nuance, I think.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Push hard, but in intelligent bouts, and there will be times to go really hard, but take some time off after, most likely.
Right. Trace, do we have any questions?
Yeah. We definitely have a question here. We've got Josh, who's been patiently waiting. He's going to step in here now. I'll ask him to unmute and do all the things we have to do, add a spotlight.
Hi,
What's up,
Josh.
guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's going.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? I was just gonna say two things to what Dylan was talking about, the maintenance phase on the GLPs. If you're lucky enough to get your insurance to cover them, something that's happening is they will only give you 1 month of a starting dose
Hmm.
per year. It'll say in a calendar year. So trying to like do a maintenance on it, they basically try to make that impossible. So it's because it's interesting. I had tried it and started on the 2.5, and then went to the 4 weeks later and like couldn't tolerate it. Like just got
Mhm.
really sick. Tried to go back to 2.5 and the insurance company's like, sorry. And so, I mean, if you have the economics to take care of that, then you're okay. But yeah, it's almost like they'd rather force you to drop out than pay for it at that point. So the maintenance on it's tough. I did end up, I couldn't tolerate the the sickness. And I was just gonna say what you guys were talking about, the workout thing. It's funny, and I don't know that it has anything to do with it, but there's a viral clip going around of Mike Trout, who's one of the greatest baseball players in the game, and he's training with this barbell on his back with like plates on the side, like running and jumping and all these things in his younger years. And then the guy's like talking about, it's like his back is thrashed, his knees are thrashed, like his he's completely broken down. And here's a pro athlete. Now that might not have anything to do with it at all, but yeah, going that hard, like there are consequences. Maybe when you're in your 20s, it might be great, but when you get to your 30s, 40s, 50s, your knees and back are going to be like, what were you thinking back then?
Yeah, 100%. I found CrossFit in my mid 30s, and like it was okay for a minute, but then I tore a meniscus and hurt my back and eventually ruptured a bicep. And like I just, for me, it was not the right workout because it was a relatively short but all out workout every day. And I would go every day to do CrossFit, but it was like 100%. And there was no downtime to recuperate. So yeah, I think that like that kind of training, and maybe I wasn't doing it in a smart way, but when I kind of moved into the kind of training where it was like, I want to be able to do this forever. Suddenly I'm not, suddenly my one rep max becomes completely irrelevant. And I don't even know what it is today,
Yeah.
because I would never get anywhere near that.
And CrossFit's tough from the standpoint of like, if you have any competitiveness in you whatsoever, once you get in that room,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, if I'll just speak for myself, like, yeah, you just want to go all out. So you're definitely prone to injury, having done that before too.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they don't let, with going back to your earlier thing, they don't let the doctors choose the dosage. That sucks.
So yeah, they start you at the beginning dosage. That's, to start, right? And then, but I think because potentially there might be some people that maybe, I will say, I live in LA. I know both of you, you were saying you used to live in Santa Monica. Ethan, I know you're out there. So I know plenty of people that are in smaller frame bodies that are using it like you guys have been talking about. Instead of going to the gym, it's kind of a boutique-y way of using it. And so I think like that 2.5, those beginning doses, I think are being used that way. And I think the insurance company, but it's like, I think take it on a case by case basis. If you have somebody that's 350 pounds, you're let them stay on that beginning dose for a couple months until they can tolerate it. If you have somebody that's 128 pounds that's trying to lose 4 pounds, they shouldn't be being prescribed that anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 lowest effective dose, for sure, for certain. And I can't speak too much to the how they're going about that. The prescription of it. It's unfortunate, for sure, because treat the individual, treat their symptomology, their appetite in this case, and other underlying factors and uses for the medication. I actually had an experience, a few with clients, where one was actually prescribed. So I can't remember what the tirzepatide was for type 2 diabetes. I believe it's the same medication. It's just labeled differently for what it's prescribed for, at least. And so her type 2, I believe this is the correct way to say it, went into type 2 diabetes, went into remission. She, A1C was now within the normal range, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, we were super excited about it. And then the doctor's like, oh, I can no longer prescribe you this. And to what Ethan and I were talking about earlier, it's like, well, I mean, for where she's at, she's building these habits, she's doing really good, but like that's like not the time to pull out that medication altogether. Is like when she just got to this. But my framing is like, hey, can you go to your doctor and be like, hey, this is what helped me get to this, and if we take this out, I'm likely going to become pre-diabetic again, right? Because this is
The
someone who,
whole thing is so stupid. I have a
yeah,
daughter with type 1 diabetes, and that would be like if we went and got her A1C checked, and they're like, well, your A1C is within normal, no more insulin for you. It's like, well, how do we keep her within range without this
right,
medication?
right, yeah,
And
1000%,
Ethan,
yeah,
you had said something I think last week, and then I'll shut up. I'm taking a lot of time.
they're good.
And it's funny. I was watching something with Oprah recently, and it like stuck with me because like I feel like we're brothers from another mother. Like I was that 400-pound guy in junior high, high school, born and raised in LA, like all these different factors. But like I never thought of it this way until I think I heard you say it last week. Like this is a chronic condition for me. I I came out the womb at almost 10 pounds. I was 70 pounds and like, at 4 or 5 years old. I was 180 pounds at like in fourth grade, fifth grade. So this isn't like something that all of a sudden I put on 40, 50 pounds in my 40s. And this, like, I've battled this my entire life. So even to what you guys are talking about with these medications, people with that type of chronic condition, you wouldn't take other medications away from them and be like, oh, you've had, genetic high blood pressure, even though you're every, no, you don't need that, So it's, listen, it's all about money, obviously, but it's ridiculous when you're treating people that have chronic obesity, for decades, and in this case, whole lifespans.
Yeah, I'm hoping and I'm hopeful that it's a very new medication, and then it's not. I've you come to find out that there have been some version of this for type 2 diabetes for many, many years. We just weren't really aware of them. I didn't hear about these until like 2023. But so as far as like, it's been an explosion for weight loss, and that is new. And with, I think about, for me, and I'm probably biased because I was overweight my whole life, but I see everything through the lens of obesity. Like every problem I look at could be solved if I felt better about myself and weighed less somehow. With that said, I think obesity is probably the biggest burden on healthcare. And I just don't, to me, none of this is being dealt with right. There are a lot of people who are obese who could benefit from access to these medications. And yet I see Hollywood starlets who have gone from 120 to 99 pounds, and I assume they're using these medications. And so, like, yeah, it's not being done right. I hope they get better. I hope they figure it out. I also hope people who find them useful recognize that these conditions are typically, when we're talking about guys like you and me, chronic and not acute, and that just simply losing 50 pounds does not mean you're done. Because I've lost 50 pounds a number of times, and until I was addressing every other aspect of my life that was the causative factor in weight gain, the weight came back. And so if we're talking about GLP-1s, if that's the thing that's causing the weight to go, yeah, you don't just stop taking it when you lose weight because the weight's coming back, most likely. And I'm saying that as though it's an absolute, and I don't know that it's an absolute, but I think it is, you know, people can eat through gastric bypass. They can certainly eat through a GLP-1, and I think there's more work to be done. I think they seem like really, really powerful tools, but they're tools, and I think there's more work to be done. Does that seem insane, Dylan? Am I being an asshole and being insane?
No, I think that that's very well said. I think that with the medication, this is like you said, kind of hopeful. I don't follow it too closely, but there's new versions. Like there because there's so much money involved, because this is such a big problem, and there's the side of like, there is also money for pharmaceutical companies to make off of this thing. So they're iterating. Like they're already on. I don't even know what version now, but they have they're 2 or 3 generations ahead in phase 1 right now. So, and now they're working on oral formulations for the semaglutide. And so I think that once, we've moved through all these iterations and the newest medication is out, these, because of demand, are probably going to drop in price, especially because I guess it's not, and I don't know the medical system super well, it's not full open competition for prices, but I do think via accessibility, being able to take an oral formulation, not having to do an injection, the actual cost of making that versus making, an injectable, the pens and stuff like that. I do believe accessibility will get better, and I do believe costs will get better. It is this really new thing, and there's room for abuse in those cases. There's lots of, like you mentioned, celebrities who are taking it to extremes. Hopefully there'll be a correction there. You never know. I don't know that side socially super well.
Right. We can
But
hope.
yeah, right. But I do think that it will improve, and I do, from what I see, and this is also like I'm super like very like optimist. Like I try to be like there's a good side to everything too. It's just that like there's accessibility via more of these maybe smaller, like a doctor runs some sort of clinic, and they're able to now get insurance approved. They're making accessibility a little bit easier, and also a lot of these doctors who are popping up with these clinics are a little bit more informed on how to use them properly, how to dose them correctly. Like if you go to maybe your GP and they're like, like you're like, I want semaglutide, and they're like, okay, cool, here's X dosage, like this kind of like, and then get you out of the office. Like maybe something like that could be an option, and hopefully those start to become more accessible as well. Time
Yeah.
will tell, and I'm speaking from not a perspective of experience here. Like I do think that situation is shitty, and unfortunate, and I would like to see it improve personally.
Yeah. Okay. Last week we received a clip from Ryan, our truest homie who's here every week at Ethan Suplee show at 2a.tv at that email account. And now I'm obviously not a doctor, but Ryan is a community member. So let's see if we can lift him up. Trace, please play that clip.
Hey Ethan, given our shared histories with addiction and obesity, and also knowing how transformative your health journey's been, what advice would you give a guy like me who's unfortunately hospitalized with a bad case of sepsis? Any advice on how to build resilience or even find motivation during a major health setback?
And Ryan is here again tonight, right, Trace? Okay, Ryan, as far as the thing you sent in, I would I would be, hey brother, I would be highly focused myself. And again, I am not a doctor, so this is not medical advice, but I would be highly focused on just getting better right now with whatever you're dealing with, just to get back to, you know, back onto a path. But the path now sounds like it's getting your body better and out of the hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. And aloha to anybody watching. It's been a journey, man. I mean, I guess best place in the world you could be in hospital is Hawaii, because I at least have a room with a view and all of that. But man, the things you and Dylan have talked about really touch home, because what they're figuring out, or at least they think, is that all of my systems are fighting against each other right now. Based on the fact that I have made some changes, all natural, no GLP1s or anything like that. And, I can't sleep. I have irritability, mania, wounds, infection, all the things that aren't allowing all these antibiotics to, go through this PICC line like they need to. And so, I don't know, or I do know after here, I'm going to seek some professional advice from somebody who can help me deal with the childhood traumas and the things like that that have maybe manifested or at least bubbled to the surface since I've been here. The good news is it looks like I'm out of the woods with all of that, and I should be released anytime, even tonight, I'm hoping. So there is hope, and I want anybody listening out there, to know that. Yeah.
That's amazing, brother. Well, I'm glad you're doing better. And yeah, I think that's getting your body better is step one. And then whatever your plan is after that, or whatever plan you were on, just get back to it slowly, one step at a time.
Just being accountable for my own feelings, my own way that I carry myself in public and privately, quit burying it all down, and actually do a more, all-encompassing approach instead of just working on the weight. The weight is a mitigating factor in my ability to move a lot, and so I'll definitely be addressing that just as hard as I address this, because when this and this are fighting against each other, you end up here, I guess. And so can't see the forest from the trees, can't see the patients until you're in the hospital. I'm a patient. And, I don't mean to boost your ego, man, but I recently got a downloaded copy of Mallrats extended version while I was in here. Never seen it, dude. And so an extra, 30 minutes of the movie or even more than that. I don't know what Kevin did to it, but like really just gave me a chuckle during some dark times, dude.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it has a completely different opening.
Yeah, yeah. I was taken aback. I was like, wait a minute. I recognize the characters, Michael Rooker, all of those guys, but like, is this the same? What am I watching here? So, yeah, good stuff all around. I'm on the up and up. I always have a smile on my face, even if I'm crying inside. And so I need to figure out the crying inside as it happens and share that with those closest to me. So even if I can't reach out completely for help, I at least have a solid, support group around me, which again, my wife, my mainstay. I know Brandy's everything to you. Elizabeth is everything to me.
Yeah, that's amazing, brother. Yeah, definitely talk to people. Keep it out there. Thank you so much, Ryan, and I hope we see you next week.
You know it. See you, man.
Trace, do we have any other questions that anybody's written in that we can address?
We have one though, one on let me turn on my camera so it doesn't look like just a lunatic is talking to you from out in the world. We had one from JK Knight, I think that's the name on YouTube, wondering what you thought about the pyramid being flipped, the food pyramid. Good or bad, or do you have any thoughts on it? Both of you, because I think Dylan might have some thoughts about that too.
I definitely want to hear Dylan's thoughts. My thoughts, very briefly, are I didn't totally pay attention to the food pyramid, to be honest with you, to begin with. But every time I did, and this is prior to the change, it seemed pretty rational. It didn't seem like insane. The food pyramid was not pushing excessive sugar. It wasn't pushing eat your fast food. So like I would look and go like, oh, this seems like common sense. And so the change to me doesn't seem all that radical. It does seem to push animal products a bit more. I eat a lot of animal products, so I'm biased to going like, not mad at that. But for anybody who's a vegan, they're going to have trouble with any of the new suggestions. Dylan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, like when I first saw this, I was like, I mean, I don't know. So back on the food pyramid comments, like even years ago, people kind of like do kind of put a lot of blame on it for the obesity epidemic and like the situation there, like it is somehow causative, or like people ate the food pyramid. I don't know if people are even like adhering really to the food pyramid. They might look at it and be like, oh, like that's interesting. I know for example, like I have someone close to me who had struggled with weight, and I remember distinctly like her going to her nutritionist that her doctor referred her to within the hospital, and like they had given her a food pyramid and like sent her home with it, and she's like, what do you think? Like I'm like, what are you supposed to do with this? Like
Right.
this is like not actionable at all. It's good for like general guidelines. I think that a focus on protein is good. Like that's probably something that these guidelines tend to be a little outdated on. There's like it's not necessarily contradictory, but it's kind of like it's a difficult thing, like where you have some of the animal fats included, which are not bad in and of themselves. It's just the actual intake quantity, right? So if you're eating maybe not as lean protein sources and then combining beef tallow and butter and all that stuff, they had stated, I believe it's still 10% you want to keep your saturated fat intake under to reduce CVD risk. And so I think, but they had that in their guidelines, right? Whether, people debate whether that, needs to be strictly adhered to or not for CVD risk, cardiovascular disease risk, heart attack, all that stuff. So that seems to be like maybe something where I see some people kind of poking holes in it. But like a basis of, a lot of protein and vegetables is like a good thing. So I don't think it's like problematic in per se. And not sure how many people are going to like really follow the food pyramid, right? At the end of the day.
Right. But because we are at where we're at with weight in America, and the food pyramid was not completely insane. There was no
Right.
Coca-Cola labeling
Yeah. Do you see
on
McDonald's on the, on there somewhere, right?
yeah. Right. I mean, like I agree. I'm protein forward, and now I think like the new trend in 2026, I believe, will be fiber. Fiber is going to be a big deal. I like
Yeah,
fiber.
I'm
I'm
for
into
it. Yeah.
fiber. Yeah, fiber and protein. Let's go all day long. I'm in support of it, but it doesn't seem all that radically different. It's just upside down.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. And I believe South Park did an episode where they did that. Like, let's flip the food pyramid upside down. Like, that's hilarious. But yeah, I think it's great. I mean, like for as much as people will criticize the health administration stuff, like, more protein is good, exercise is good. Like there are some good things there, right?
Yeah.
So if we can focus on those, that's awesome, right?
I
That's
agree.
a good shift.
I think a lot of public schools don't have physical education anymore, or
Oh
it's
my gosh.
limited. Like, let's get that back. It was my absolute least favorite thing in school, but I wish I had done more of it,
Dude, I was lobbying for this in high school. I remember talking to like our uh the administrative staff about that stuff. And I remember they were like had them come in, they were doing like some election for it, and I was like they're like ask them questions, and I was like going through the like the lunch menu, and I'm like, this is what we have access to, and it says that it's health forward like on your website. Like, what are we doing anything about this? So yeah, totally. Like PE, all that stuff is like so awesome. So I would love
Yeah.
to see that.
Dylan, before we go, remind everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, so pretty much I've kind of taken a hiatus on socials for a while just because I've been working with RP on their media team and their YouTube and stuff like that. So if you watch any of their short form content, I do various other things like the member section and stuff. Then that's where I usually am, like behind the scenes. Right now, best place to reach me is Instagram. And I do still offer coaching. I'm mostly working with competitors, but I do have a program for people who are just looking to get in shape and stay fit and healthy and as healthy as possible. So yeah, Instagram's the best place for that right now. And that's
Awesome.
just my name, Dylan Guynn.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks everybody who asked questions. It was cool hearing your stories and talking with all of you.
Yeah. It's time for today's Daily Nudge, and this week it comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson in his work on self-reliance. What we persist in doing becomes easier, not because the work itself has changed, but because we have. The world does not lower its demands, and the task does not soften out of kindness. What changes is our capacity to meet it. By returning to the work day after day, we build the strength required to carry it. Persistence is not stubbornness. It is the quiet process by which ability is formed. Ralph Waldo Emerson. He lived 200 years ago, understood that persistence builds power. Today, that insight still holds. Persistence also means knowing when to adapt, when to learn, and when to use the tools available. Showing up consistently and sustainably is how strength actually lasts. Before we go, a couple of quick reminders. You can send questions to Ethan Suplee show at twoway.tv. If you'd rather send a video question, email it. We promise we'll get it on the show. Additionally, join our subreddit r/Ethan Suplee LifeLOng. The link is on the screen in YouTube show notes. It's a great place for me to interact with your comments, questions, and suggestions. In closing, remember, paths to better health rarely begin with a flash of insight. Start where you are. Try things, adjust as you go, and do small things each day. Progress comes to those willing to move forward without guarantees. That's all for this week. And remember, health is lifelong. It is built, not born. Thank you very much.